The theme park. A magical place where you get to stand in line for hours and fly through the air in rickety vehicles operated by teenagers. Despite the fun to be had in one that's up and running, theme parks tend to get extremely creepy when they go out of business. Ruined by desertion, dilapidation, and even death, here are the creepiest theme parks you don't want to visit. Six Flags New Orleans. New Orleans' version of the famous chain began life in 2000 under the name Jazzland, aiming to be centered around New Orleans heritage. Jazzland was bought out by Six Flags in 2002 and was popular with locals and visitors alike. That is, until total disaster struck in the form of Hurricane Katrina in 2005. The park was under 7 feet of brackish water for over a month, which damaged its rides and infrastructure beyond repair. Many of its rides have now been removed, but the park retains a mixture of gloominess and a certain excitement due to the fact that alligators now live among the remnants of its water rides. The park does see some human footfall, though. It's been used in the filming of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Jurassic World, and other movies, and is popular among the many brave urban explorers of YouTube. Dinosaur Land, England. If Jurassic Park is anything to go by, dinosaurs can be pretty terrifying, but they're even scarier when they're cracked, filthy, and covered in mold. When Dinosaurland, a prehistoric-themed park in Tamworth, England, shut down over a decade ago, its eerie inhabitants were left inside. The park that once invited guests to explore the wonders of a lost age has now itself been lost to the ages. There are dusty dinosaurs lurking around every corner, as well as uncanny cavemen that are now covered in cobwebs. Spreepark Berlin. Also known as Kulturpark Planterwald Berlin, this park was found in East Germany. Both the park and country exist in the past tense now, since Germany was reunified in the 1990s. Despite its popularity during East Germany's Soviet occupation, attendance fell as the century waned, and Spreepark closed in 2002 due to a lack of visitors. The story didn't end there though, as the park's owner took some of the rides with him in giant shipping containers when he moved to Peru, in a failed attempt to establish a new park. On his return in 2004, he was found to be using the rides to smuggle 180 kilograms of Peruvian nose candy into Germany, and both the owner and his son were arrested. In the years that followed, the park was ravaged by decay and even arson, leaving nothing more than a sad, eerie place for anyone unlucky enough to visit. Dogpatch, Arkansas. This Deep South-themed park was designed to look like an old-timey hillbilly town and ran from the late 60s until the early 90s. Based on a fictional town from the comic strip Lil Abner by cartoonist Al Cap, the park featured everything from a fishing pond to caverns and even horseback riding. There were even characters with folksy names like Hairless Joe, who would walk around the park and interact with visitors. I like to imagine that the actors still roam the park today, complaining that things ain't like they used to be. In 2002, the park went up for sale on eBay for $1 million, but received no bids. With the rundown shacks, collapsed sculptures, putrid ponds, and pervasive coating of rust, it's hardly surprising. Lincoln Park, Massachusetts. This northeastern ghost park was a popular destination for over 6 decades after its inception in the 1920s. Even the Kennedys reportedly frequented the park. But then, in 1986, a fatal accident on the Comet, a wooden roller coaster, initiated the park's unraveling. People grew skeptical of the park's safety standards, with further near misses involving dilapidated equipment and coaster brake failures. Visitor numbers fell steeply. Lincoln Park finally closed in 1987, and now all that remains is a collection of decaying wooden structures. Many of these have since collapsed, painting an eerie, jagged picture of a place that once held joyful memories for so many people, a place that is now haunted by the memories of the child whose death kickstarted the park's downfall. Pripyat Amusement Park. Unlike other parks around the world that thrived before abandonment, the Pripyat Amusement Park was never opened. The grand opening had been planned for May 1st, 1986, with the intention of being a park of culture and rest for the inhabitants of Soviet-occupied Ukraine. But on April 26th, the Chernobyl nuclear disaster struck mere miles away, and the park was left to rust in the middle of the now ghost town. Heading to the park today, you can see the decorations for the planned opening that never happened, alongside hopeful murals painted on the walls. Visitors today leave stuffed animals by the Ferris wheel, bumper cars, and swing boats as memorials to those who died in the Chernobyl disaster. The sad contrast between the innocent, pastel-painted rides, the all-pervasive rust, and the knowledge of what caused its abandonment makes this one of the most harrowing places on Earth. It's one of the most dangerous, too, since non-concrete areas of the park still hold hazardous levels of radiation. Dunaj Vorosi Vidampark. Yet another famous, abandoned Soviet theme park, Vidampark opened in Hungary in 1952. True to the spirit of communism, it was totally free for visitors. It got all its funding from the Soviet government and enjoyed a decent run of 40 years. But when the USSR collapsed, the park shut down. Nowadays, smiling Hungarian children have been replaced with broken rides, spooky Soviet-era art/propaganda, and a huge spider-like structure overhanging the park. If you listen very hard, you can hear Lenin cursing his failed successors on the wind. Dadipark Belgium. Located near the French border in Belgium, Dadipark was a kid-friendly park opened in 1950. After years of steady popularity and expansion, darkness began to seep through the cracks in the brightly colored walls. Though Dadipark initially survived a series of minor accidents involving poorly maintained rides, attendance took a nosedive in 2000 after a 9-year-old got his arm chopped off in the popular Nautic jet ride. It closed for renovation soon after, but never reopened. Nowadays, nature is slowly reclaiming the area, giving a glimpse into how the world might look if an apocalypse wipes out a civilization. In a word, rusty. Gulliver's Kingdom, Japan. At the base of Mount Fuji lies a giant tied to the ground. He's covered in graffiti now, but he was once a gigantic model, representing the titular character from Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels. The Japanese government funded many construction projects in the 90s to try and boost the economy. But an amusement park based around such a specific theme may not have been the wisest choice of investment. Indeed, Gulliver's Kingdom failed to attract enough visitors and closed merely 4 years after its opening in 1997. This was also likely a location issue. After all, I can't imagine parents were too eager to take their kids somewhere so close to Japan's notorious suicide forest, Aokigahara. Being located a few miles away from the most popular suicide destination in the world, besides the Golden Gate Bridge, doesn't exactly scream family fun. The surrounding area also once housed the headquarters of Aum Shinrikyo, a religious cult who murdered 13 people in 1995. The sinister history of the area, coupled with the obscure, mostly demolished remnants of the park, makes it one seriously spooky destination. Disney's Lost Worlds. In the middle of a lake in Disney World, Florida, lies Discovery Island, a once popular zoological park, now only accessible to the stealthiest of urban explorers. It's totally off limits, and Disney has said that anyone caught on the island will be banned from all Disney properties for life. Discovery Island closed in 1999 and now resembles little more than a series of dilapidated enclosures and walkways from the shore. But those brave enough to venture across have found overgrown enclosures and buildings, freezers full of rotting substances, and, weirdest of all, jars and bottles containing real, preserved snakes. If that wasn't enough, just across the same lake housing Discovery Island lies River Country, Disney's own abandoned water park. What was once a popular splashdown destination now resembles an advert for a monster flick, or at the very least hepatitis. After 25 years in business, River Country closed in 2001, unable to compete with Disney World's larger, newer water parks. It now sits alone, a silent, stagnant pool surrounded by filthy slides and moldy walls. Perfect for a dip, if Discovery Island doesn't scare you enough. Holy Land USA. Today, there's very little holiness in Holy Land. Built in Connecticut in 1955, the park features a replica of the Garden of Eden, tributes to the life of Christ, and other biblical dioramas. It was best known for its giant Hollywood-style sign and enormous floodlit cross. Once a wholesome destination, the park is now one of the spookiest. It's been trashed in its years since its closure in 1984 and is full of decapitated statues and defiled iconography. If that isn't enough to keep you away, a woman was brutally murdered there in 2010. If you ever head to Holy Land, best take an exorcist. Ki-Joon Leisureland, Japan. This abandoned theme park in Tohoku, Japan has more than just standard rusty rides and collapsed buildings under its belt. It closed in 2000 due to failing popularity, attributed to Japan's low birth rate and unstable economy. But what gives the park an unnerving edge is its ghostly location. The park was built next to the folkloric pond of the Ghost Woman. The pond's ancient myth involves a woman going insane and drowning herself in the pond after giving birth to a screaming snake-human hybrid. Rumor has it, at night, the screams of the wretched creature and its lunatic mother can still be heard. Even as a skeptic, that'd certainly keep me looking over my shoulder. Nara Dreamland, Japan. Nara Dreamland opened in 1961, aiming to be Japan's answer to Disneyland. Once the legit Tokyo Disneyland opened in 1983, it leached customers from Dreamland, gradually leading to its closure in 2006. Now, Dreamland's knockoff Disney aesthetic only contributes to the creepiness. The castle soon gained the attention of vandals, giving its innocent pink walls a filthy post-apocalyptic feel. Cute, merry characters were defiled and left in disturbing poses, while the park's many attractions soon became encased in dust and vines. Dreamland was demolished in 2017, but footage from YouTube explorers keep its sinister memory alive. Cidade Albanoel, Brazil. This place was intended to be the Santa-themed section of a much larger park in Brazil. Only the rest of the park was never constructed, and Cidade Albanoel itself never even opened. Now it's nothing but an incredibly strange Christmas ghost town. The creator, Brazilian politician Antonio Albano Reis, was killed in a car accident only a few meters from the park. His death, alongside allegations of on-site animal neglect, permanently stalled development, leaving behind what resembles a surreal Christmas special of Twin Peaks. Alongside various representations of Santa and his helpers, you can also find abandoned strollers and, for some reason, a terrifying Humpty Dumpty. Even in the heat of summertime, this place promises guaranteed chills. Western Village, Japan. In Nikko, Japan, a city about 70 miles north of Tokyo, lies Western Village. The Wild West-themed park has been closed since 2007 and is inhabited only by defunct animatronic cowboys these days, as well as a replica of Mount Rushmore. While some of the interiors are still impressive, the animatronics seem almost guaranteed to move while your back is turned. They can be found in various freeze frames of daily life in the Wild West, worst of all being a man having his tooth pulled. The scene is made even creepier by the vines, which have grown around the two men like something out of Satan's flower garden. But weirdest of all is an unexplainable sculpture of a woman seemingly fused with a bubbling wall of flesh. Whatever it is, I'm pretty sure they didn't have it in the real Wild West. Error of translation, I assume. Has this video made you want to check out some abandoned amusement parks? Or to have the military nuke them off the earth? Let me know what you think and which ones you'd visit in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.